Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be doing another weapon breakdown for Battlefield 2042, and this time we're going to be covering the 12M auto. In these weapon breakdowns, we're going to go through a bunch of stats that you guys need to know, such as the rounds per minute, reload times, bullet velocity, damage over distance, bullets to kill over distance, and time to heal over distance as well. On top of those stats, we'll then go over the recoil pattern for the weapon, and then lastly I'll go over some unique loadouts that I've crafted for specific playstyles for those of you guys who aren't 100% sure on which attachments to use. Before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So the 12M is classed as a utility weapon in 2042, and it unlocks at level 44, so it actually does take a good minute to unlock this one. It has a magazine size of 8 shells plus 1 in the chamber, and it fires at a rate of 299 rounds per minute, which is more than 3 times the speed of the MCS 880, which is the only other shotgun in the game. Now for its reload times, it takes 3 seconds for a tactical reload, which is when you manually reload it, or it takes 3.53 seconds for an empty reload, which is when it is automatically reloaded after running out of shells. As for the velocity, it sends its ammunition down range at 400 meters per second, which is the same speed as both the MCS 880 and even the PBX45 from the SMG class, so it's definitely not got great muzzle velocity, but that is obviously to be expected from a shotgun. Now getting into the more detailed stats for the 12M auto, this is a little bit all over the place because the damage stats are actually going off each pellet from each shot, so the damage seems really low, yet it's actually just multiplied by how many pellets hit the enemy. Each shot has 16 pellets, so if you hit every single pellet from up close, for example, that is 6 times 16, which equates to 96 damage per shot, whereas if you shot from mid-range and half those pellets miss, then it's obviously going to have a huge drop off. I did consider just showing the maximum damage stats for the entire shell rather than the damage per pellet, but at the end of the day you can shoot someone twice from the exact same distance with a shotgun and it will often deal different amounts of damage, so I've just stuck with the damage per pellet. Also keep in mind, headshots actually do the same amount of damage as a body shot with shotguns, at least according to the stats anyway. Each pellet deals 6 damage up to 19 meters, and then at 20 meters and beyond it drops down to 5 damage per pellet, so it actually has a pretty smooth drop off and barely changes at all at distance, although obviously less pellets will hit at a longer range, so that in itself will be somewhat of a damage drop off. As for the pellets that it takes to kill over distance, and keep in mind that there are 16 pellets per shell, it takes 17 pellets to kill up to 19 meters, so just missing out on a one-hit kill, and then at 20 meters and beyond it will take 20 pellets to kill an enemy. Now I usually do the time to kill as well, but just the same as the snipers, this stat is kind of irrelevant for shotguns because sometimes it is a one-shot kill, and sometimes from that same distance, if you miss a few pellets, it can take 2 shots to kill, so yeah, for shotguns that stat is essentially irrelevant. Now moving on, we have what I usually do as the recoil pattern, but today I thought I'd actually just show off the blast pattern more than anything. Obviously shotguns are very much randomized and inaccurate in terms of the way that they spread, and so just keep in mind that this is going to be different every time pretty much, but I do think it actually helps to see it anyway. Now moving on, like I mentioned, I've actually crafted some different loadouts that I often like to use on the 12M auto. Now usually I do 3 loadouts per weapon, but honestly with the 12M auto there are really only 2 worth mentioning in my opinion, and they're both fairly similar too. There's not all that many different options for shotguns, and some attachments are just objectively better than others, so yeah, we're only going to go through 2 of these for this video. The first loadout that I wanted to cover is the meta build, and this is essentially just the loadout that I'm running more often than not, and I do think this is the overall best build for the 12M auto, although keep in mind that I'm also not that much of a shotgun player, but yeah, I've actually done quite a bit of testing for that exact reason because I wasn't really sure what are the best attachments, and this is just the loadout that I feel works best for me anyway. For the sight I use the iron sights. I don't really see all that much point in using a sight since the iron sights are nice and clear anyway, but obviously the sight is always just a personal preference, so if you prefer a red dot or something like that, then that is definitely a solid option. For the ammo I use the #1 buckshot drum. This is just easily the best magazine considering it gives you 20 shells rather than 8. For the underbarrel I use the LS1 laser sight now that they've fixed it so that it is actually a really good option for getting some more hipfire accuracy. And then lastly for the barrel I use the factory barrel, as that does just give it its maximum range. Like I said, this is pretty much equipped 90% of the time for me when I'm running the 12M, so definitely give this one a try and see if you like it. Now moving on to the second loadout that I wanted to cover, this one is the stealth loadout, and this is for when you're up close and personal with the enemies and you want to kind of try and just stay off the radar and stay behind enemy lines, which is always a lot of fun with a shotgun. For the sight, I use the iron sights again. For the ammo, I use the number 1 buckshot drum again. For the underbarrel, I use the rattlesnake light grip. After update 4.0, this now actually increases your hipfire accuracy, and while the laser sight is actually the better option, that can also be detected, which isn't ideal for a stealth build. So this is the slightly worse but also slightly stealthier option of the two. Lastly, for the barrel, I use the Type 4 heavy suppressor, as that is obviously the main thing that causes this to be a more stealthy build than the others, and it will take a little bit off your max range, but it is still very viable and it will keep you off the radar at all distances. I don't usually use this loadout all that often, but I do always carry it in the plus system, and whenever I find myself behind enemy lines without anyone really knowing, I tend to equip this one and just sort of try and take out some enemies without them noticing me. So that is pretty much it for the 12M auto, guys. I won't lie, I'm not that much of a shotgun fan in shooters. I absolutely suck with them, and most people who use them against me seem to be absolute gods, so they just frustrate the hell out of me. But honestly, this is one of the more enjoyable shotguns that I've used in pretty much any shooter, to be honest, and it is good fun on certain areas of certain maps, so definitely give this one a crack. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.